After so long, what was seemingly months, I finally finished watching the final season of Young Sheldon, and today I wanted to go through all the episodes, talk about what I liked, talk about what I didn't like, but I will say, and you know what, I'll say this after the intro, I do want to say before we get into the video, hello everybody, welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle, I am your guy with many YouTube channels. A couple things I do want to say before we get into it. So one, of course, this is a spoiler review. I'm going to talk about everything that happened in Season 7, so usually I make these videos right after I watch the seasons, right? Because it's fresh in my head. I can talk about exactly what's going on, but it took me so long to watch this because I've been watching The Big Bang Theory and Young Sheldon with my mom, and my mom, of course, doesn't live with me, so we've been watching these episodes like every couple weeks or something like that. We will watch a couple episodes. So I will be completely honest with you. It's going to be a little bit different to how I usually do this. It's not really too fresh in my head. So up until we get towards the end, I feel like I'm going to be a little bit vague in talking about the season breakdown. So with that being said, guys, I hope it's still enjoyable. Let's get into the video for today. So the season starts off, of course, with the aftermath of the tornado. Connie learns that her insurance doesn't cover the damage, and she ends up living with Dale, and this is how their relationship continues to sprout. And of course, we have all that stuff with the baby that comes, but their relationship takes the next step. They end up actually living with each other, and the rest of the episode's kind of about everybody just living with the damage, dealing with a tornado. Missy just went through something incredible, but with Sheldon and his mom being gone in Germany, Missy stepped up and kind of became the owner or the boss of the house. She was bossing around the father. She was assigning everybody chores, and actually, she was doing quite a good job of it. And we also had the side plot of Pastor Jeff finding a TV, which was really funny, and getting it in bad faith. I don't remember exactly how he got it, but he ended up just dropping it off on the porch later on, which honestly was really funny. We also had that little side plot with Sheldon struggling academically, which was new for him, and he was being very arrogant, and his mom was secretly enjoying Sheldon being behind because he ended up having a young girl come over and have to tutor him. And it's so funny, again, watching the difference between young Sheldon, because watching Big Bang Theory, it's like, would Sheldon really sit down and be tutored by somebody? But he had to be tutored because he was falling behind academically, and the little girl was kind of being mean to him. The mom was secretly loving it. While Sheldon's struggling academically, Mary ended up actually having a pretty good situation because she started running back and forth to George, and they ended up loving each other. They were sending letters. They missed each other. They missed their company. It's probably been, with them being separated, which is odd, the best the relationship has been in so long. And I'm sitting here, and this is something my mom and I were waiting for the entire time because, of course, we all know George is going to die. When is George going to die? I honestly was open to the idea that George was going to die seasons ago. So my mom and I, it's so funny because we were sitting down and that little thing that would happen. Oh my God, is this where George dies? So where I was going with this is I was thinking, oh my God, they're in love with each other. George is going to die while they're in Germany, and Mary's not going to be able to come back, right? Because things were going too good. They were all romantic. Everybody loved each other. Georgie ended up writing a letter to Mandy, which and didn't end up being too good. But we also have the side plot in this episode where Sheldon was forbidden to take a train, but he took it anyways. He ended up getting caught with police officers. I don't remember the exact part of that, but he ended up calling Missy for help. The mom found out, and Sheldon ended up having to hide it, which was really funny because, of course, Sheldon can't keep secrets. He's really awkward about it. And we also have that other subplot line with Missy having a new friend. I can't remember the name. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. It was one of those names like Alex where it could be both a boy or a girl name. And George ended up asking about this person the entire time, finding out it was a boy, and Missy ended up lying to him, saying that he is swinging for the same team. So that was a really funny part too, because George just kind of got floored by it, and I was like, man, I would not fall for that. I have a daughter that's 2 months old. I am not gonna fall for that. We continue on to another episode where Sheldon and Mary end up returning from Germany, but because the household's actually running so well, Missy's doing such a good job, she had the chore chart. Mary felt very out of place, so she was kind of fitting herself into Sheldon's life, into George's life. She wanted to go and do something for the football team. I don't remember exactly what it was, but Sheldon was irritated too because the baby was in his room and the baby wouldn't stop crying. But oh my God, the funniest part, we'll get to it in just a second, because Mary ended up having to find her own place back in her house because Missy ended up getting dumped by this supposedly guy who swings for the same team, and she was kind of hugging her, being all motherly, so she ended up being okay. The whole episode was kind of about her struggling to come back because everybody was thriving without her. And she was a stressful mom, by the way. I would argue that she's not the best partner or the best mother. Regardless, we have the time where Sheldon's dad cheats on his mom. I was watching this, like I said, I watched the whole thing with my mom, and I was looking at her, I was like, oh my God, really? Because she came back from Germany, and what was she role-playing as? It was like Olga or something. She role-played as a German woman, and Sheldon ended up walking into the room and she was being this German woman. They were dirty talking each other, and Sheldon just ended up shutting the door. Older Sheldon ended up noting that he would never speak about it again, and that was the birth of him knocking on doors 3 times. I was sitting back. I was looking at my mom. I was like, really? That's it? Because I was waiting the whole time for George to be unfaithful. I thought it was going to be with the neighbor. I thought he was going to come back, and I don't know. The neighbor was going to miss him so much, and they ended up having sex. I don't know, but it's funny that they actually went that route with it. It's very, very interesting, and I actually like that they went that route with it personally. We then have a whole episode that's kind of with Sheldon making a new friend and making some AI project, and there was kind of really nothing to talk about, to be honest. It was some funny moments. They ended up throwing a computer out the window because of some AI program, but regardless, continuing on, Mary ends up being kept up and losing sleep because of people, to use her words, doing something all night, and it was mainly Georgie and Mandy. So Mary ended up having a problem with it because, of course, it's premarital sex, and so he ended up asking them about their wedding plans, and they have no reason to wait. So Georgie and Mandy, after a brief conversation, decided to just go get married at City Hall the following week. Audrey is then brought into the picture because both parents wanted to end up paying for a bigger formal wedding, but she ends up arguing with Mary a little bit. Mary and Audrey end up arguing, which is Georgie's mom and Mandy's mom, because one of them is Baptist and another one is Catholic. So you have this entire episode, which just is 2 mothers being absolutely horrible and taking something for their children doing something that for children that's not theirs, because you have Mary, who ended up getting Cece baptized in a sink, and then you have Audrey like, how could you do such a thing? And then she ended up saying, Mandy, it's okay, go shopping. And then she ended up getting the kid baptized again. I actually don't know how that works out for different religions. Like, what happens? Like, I'm Catholic personally. What would happen if I got my child baptized and then somebody else got my daughter baptized in another faith? I don't know how that works. I'm actually very curious about that. But what a bunch of pieces of crap those 2 are. And they didn't even say anything. I can't believe they admitted it, to be honest with you. Mandy's freaking out. Mandy's upset. That's understandably so. But I also understand Georgie's perspective of it too, especially if you're coming from a non-religious perspective, because all it is, so what, your moms care about this a lot and they wanted some water splash in her face. What's the big deal that happened? I understand that is, depending on the person, something very, very touchy. But at the end of the day, that was not their child. I don't care if it's family. That's not their child, and they shouldn't have done it, and that's wrong. They're both pieces of crap, and they've both been pieces of crap. We all knew that both of them would do this, and she's like, I'm saving their soul. Doesn't matter. That's Mandy's and Georgie's decision. So both of them shouldn't have been in the picture. Either way, that's an unforgivable act in my opinion, but I do understand Georgie's take on it. It's just, hey, so what? There's some water. They wanted to be happy. They care about your daughter. I get that, but at the end of the day, bunch of pieces of crap. So they ended up just getting married at City Hall. Mandy was sick of it. She wanted to get married immediately. While they go to City Hall, all of the parents are informed. Connie tells everybody, and everybody shows up at City Hall. They're not necessarily happy about it, but they go through with it, and they end up having dinner, and Mandy's parents end up offering to pay for them to go. Was it on a honeymoon or just a holiday, or it doesn't really matter. They offered to pay for them to go on a vacation or something. So they end up going on a vacation, and they leave Cece with Connie because, of course, why would you leave it with Mary or Audrey, right? Who in their right mind would do that? But Connie ended up taking the daughter for a little stroll and ended up getting arrested because of the gambling room. And it's just horrible timing again, because they ended up having the car ride, Georgie and Mandy, and they were like, yeah, I'm glad that she's with your grandma. I'm glad she's safe. And honestly, the rest of the episode is just hilarious, because now Dale ended up making fun of Dale ended up making fun of Connie, which was hilarious. They had some nice interactions with the cops. That was really funny. Mary ended up taking the child, and Audrey found out and was like, why do you have the child? Why was this criminal thing going on? And while George and the other husband, I think Jim, was that? Yeah, it was his name. His name was Jim. They ended up bonding over dinner. It's like, oh, both of our wives are crazy. This is ridiculous, right? But Mary ended up keeping the kid regardless, and they just started bickering more and more and more. And in this entire thing, Sheldon never knew about the gambling room, which I didn't even think about. So Missy ended up telling him that there was a dead body in his mom's prayer garden. So Sheldon ended up actually digging it. That entire episode was hilarious. I loved everything about it. We then move on to the next episode where Connie is let go. She's under house arrest, and you have this really funny scenes with Sheldon saying, hey, let's just tell everybody that she's crazy, and that's what happened, and she didn't even know she was running a gambling room, right? But nothing else really happened over there except for towards the end of the episode where the whole episode was about the toilet going, or having a problem with plumbing. So you had these really funny moments with the porta potty that George ended up finding because it was on the football field or something. So Mandy and Georgie ended up moving out and moving into Audrey. Georgie is so happy and so appreciative. Doesn't matter what a piece of crap her mom is, and Mandy understands what a piece of crap her mom is, but Audrey was just constantly scoffing, disrespecting Georgie. And it seemed like, and they didn't say this, okay? They didn't say this, but it seemed like the whole point of the episode was Audrey was kind of warming up to the idea of Georgie, because after disrespecting him, treating him like dirt, walking around and just looking at him like he was this worst kind of person that Mandy could ever marry. Sorry, I'm getting the names mixed up. Connie, Mary, Mandy. She ends up spying on him while he's sitting with Cece. He's like, who's the most beautiful baby? I will do everything in my whole power to protect you. And then she ended up kind of like looking at him strange. I think that is her kind of accepting him. So the only reason that I believe this too is because after so long, Jim ended up being allowed, which is incredible, allowed to give Georgie a job at the tire shop. After Georgie wanted a job, he was all happy that he was a bag boy or something like that because he's making money. He's a very, very motivated person. He is the ideal husband. He is the ideal husband, and Audrey's such a piece of crap, man. Crap, I hate her. The episode after that, there's not too much that goes on besides two main points. As Georgie, again, being an amazing husband that he is, he wants to become a little bit more well-spoken, and it's funny to see the success that he becomes in The Big Bang Theory, right? Because, of course, he wasn't happy about the way that he is, and people were criticizing him. Audrey hated the fact that, I don't remember what she was kind of saying about Georgie's speech, but she wasn't happy about it, the way his sentences were put together, something like that. So he tried to do better, and he actively did better. He's a great, great person, a great husband, and other than that, Sheldon had a little bit of a dilemma in this episode, and he ended up actually choosing MIT to actually end up going to. So we're setting up the end of the show, and it's very evident right now. And actually, I felt a little bit sad watching it because I knew it was coming to an end. We then have a couple more episodes that don't really matter, to be honest with you. It was just more about Audrey and Mary wanting to be better parents. They were arguing about the marriage, and you have Sheldon teaching Dr. Linkletter and Dr. Sturgis. I don't remember what he was teaching them, but something that they had to come to terms about because they're old and they don't understand. So it was just a little bit more on the funny side, which, again, nothing wrong with that. It's just nothing to really break down about that. But the only other part about this is Mary, after babysitting Cece for so long, starts to get the baby fever. She wants to have another kid. And George freaked out and got a vasectomy. And just ended up sitting in the chair, and he's like, he somehow was able to hide it. It was all just really funny, but it wasn't too important to the plot. And this is where everything ends up kind of taking a huge, huge turn, because Sheldon wraps up his time in Texas. He says goodbye to everybody. He says goodbye to the head of the university. He says goodbye to all of his memories. He goes to the comic book store, has his last conversation with the guy in there. He even invites, oh man, why am I having a blank on that guy's name? His friend from the first season. I don't remember. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Again, like I said, it's been a little bit since I watched this all, but George ended up getting a new job offer, and this is where I was sealing the deal to myself. I was like, okay, he's a goner. They're not moving. Everybody's happy. Everybody's having a good time, and while at the end of the episode, while the family was preparing for a family portrait, Coach Wilkins and the principal ended up showing up at the door and just said, I'm so sorry, and we didn't see George die. We didn't see George die. They just gave news that he had a heart attack. And man, is Missy a good actor. They're all fantastic actors, honestly. All of them are. But Missy, whoever that actress is, made me want to cry, man. I didn't expect them to do the death this way. I was waiting for them to do the death the entire show. I didn't think he was going to die at like the last couple episodes. They just showed up at the door. We didn't see it. They didn't see it. George ended up leaving for work. He ended up just leaving for work. Nobody acknowledged him. And then they showed up and he was dead. Missy, man, made me want to cry. Honestly. And I'm good at not crying. I'm not a crier, but man, that actress is fantastic. And the show ends up kind of ending off not how I expected it to be honest. And it was, don't get me wrong, it was fantastic. I just didn't expect that to go that way. But the next episode was all about the family just kind of preparing for the funeral. Everybody was expressing their grief in different ways. Sheldon spent a ton of time imagining different timelines of him saying, Dad, I love you, or going for, and my dog's right here, I have to spell it, a CAR ride with him. And it was just really, really sad because nobody acknowledged George. He just left. He goes, all right, see ya. Nobody gave him a kiss. It's crazy to me. Nobody just acknowledged him, and then people had to show up and tell him that he was dead, or tell his whole family that he was dead. So they ended up having the funeral at the church, and everybody was giving their grievances. Connie ended up having a really good speech. Mary ended up freaking out a little bit, and Sheldon ended up imagining that he gave this really heartwarming speech, but then it cuts to adult Sheldon saying that, I wish that's what I could have done. But adult Sheldon talked about how much he actually really admired, loved his father, and what a good man he was. And honestly, very, very interesting way to end off the show, because they take the story a little bit into Sheldon getting baptized because it's really important to Mary, and Sheldon's leaving for California and he's not baptized. They have this whole big problem. Missy starts freaking out, being a horrible daughter. I don't care that your dad just died, Missy. Don't be a piece of crap to your mother. Connie ended up convincing them, and then there was a little bit more problems with that, but it's not really important because Connie ended up ending off with Connie visiting Mary at George's gravestone, urging her to spend more time with their children, talking about how they need their mother, and the family's kind of broken down. It was just this really, really heartfelt thing. I think it was taking place about a month after the funeral. They have a little bit of comedic relief with Sheldon coming out with, like, I don't remember what it was, a scuba suit or something like that to go and get baptized, which is really funny. But they ended up, it was crazy that they're doing a good job of making me laugh and making me really feel at the same time. But we're then brought, and this is what I was excited to talk about, present day, with adult Sheldon, to revealing this entire show to just be writing his memoir of his Texas childhood. That was an awesome way to do it. I did not expect to see actual Sheldon and Amy show up too. I thought that was an incredible way to end it off because, guys, Big Bang Theory is one of my childhood shows. I love Big Bang Theory. It's one of my comfort shows. So to see them come back, and I didn't know about this. I didn't know about it. I hate spoilers. Every single time I'm scrolling through anything, like if I'm watching something, I hit not interested. I don't want to know anything about it. So he ended up being revealed that he's living in Los Angeles with Amy, and he ended up having a son named Leonard, and he had another daughter. I thought he named her Penny, but he ended up being Penny, ended up being a babysitter. So regardless, we all know that, I thought we knew that his son was named Leonard. Yeah, he mentioned at the beginning of Young Sheldon, that's what it was. He ended up mentioning that he ended up having a son named Leonard. But either way, it was just this really funny moment. Amy wanted Sheldon to go watch his kid play hockey, and then Sheldon was like, oh, I don't want to. And then they started talking about having acting lessons. He's like, that's when the Penny thing came up. I knew I shouldn't have let Penny babysit because now his daughter wanted to act. So it was this whole thing, and Amy convinced Sheldon that it was very important, and Sheldon understood that it's very important, especially with writing about his father's death, to spend more time with your children. That is very, very important. And it was really touching, man. It was really, really touching. The last thing that Sheldon ends up writing about is a old conversation he had with Missy, and Missy asking if he'll ever remember her, and it was just them two. And Sheldon ended up having comedic relief with it, right? And just said, well, I have an eidetic memory. Of course I'm going to remember you. And he remembered it exactly how it was, right? We're then brought away from Sheldon and Amy to young Sheldon visiting Caltech. Somebody asks him if he's lost, and then they have that cliche ending where he's like, no, I'm right where I belong, or whatever he said. So it was a very interesting way to actually end off the series, and I loved it. I got so happy. Like, I actually just straight up just smiled the entire time I saw Sheldon and Amy on there, because again, I love Big Bang Theory. It's my childhood show. One of the first shows that I kind of fell in love with as a kid, and I spent the entirety of, like, it's one of my comfort shows because I watched it with my mom. And now Young Sheldon came out. I moved out of my mom's house, and I'm still watching Young Sheldon with my mom. So it's a very special show to me, and I'm glad they ended it off the way they did. It's crazy the way that George ended up dying. I was waiting for it the entire show. It's crazy that he didn't actually end up cheating. That's something that I was waiting for the entire show, but I thought it was fantastic, man. I will never understand the hate that this show gets online. Big Bang Theory and Young Sheldon in general, because I thought it was fantastic. I cannot wait for the Georgie and Mandy spinoff, because Georgie ended up taking over. Georgie ended up taking over the whole thing. Kind of like how Leonard was supposed to be the star of the Big Bang Theory and Sheldon took over. Sheldon was supposed to be the star of Young Sheldon. Georgie kind of took over, but they did a fantastic job with it. I loved every bit of it. The actors are fantastic in it. And one day I'll be rewatching it. I'm excited, man. I'm excited. So next up, actually, my mom and I are going to finish The Middle. It's another show that we ended up watching. We used to watch when I lived at home with her. So it's going to take a while, but we'll get through it, and I'll be making videos on it, guys. Let me know what you thought about the final season of Young Sheldon down below. Thank you very, very much for being here. Thank you for watching. If you are interested, I have another video recapping the season before of Young Sheldon. I dive really, really deep into it, so I don't know how long this video was, but that one's really long too. So check it out, guys. I'll see you over there. Take care.